In 1863, a 23-year-old bookkeeper in Cleveland had $800 to his name. Most people in his position would have kept saving, played it safe. He didn't. He walked up to his father and borrowed $1,000 at 10% interest. 48 years later, he was the richest man in American history. His name was John D. Rockefeller. And if he had followed the advice your parents gave you, pay off your debts, don't take loans, stay safe, there is no Standard Oil, there is no ExxonMobil, there is no Chevron. The wealthiest families in history never feared debt. The Rothschilds built a banking empire on it. Rockefeller built an industrial empire on it, and the reason you don't know how they did it is because nobody profits from you knowing. By the end of this video, you will. Chapter 1. The difference that builds empires. Here's the thing nobody distinguishes between. There are two kinds of debt, and they are not even slightly the same thing. Bad debt buys you things that lose value the second you own them. A car, clothes, a vacation on a credit card, a new iPhone financed at 12% interest. The thing depreciates while you pay interest on it. You lose twice. Once because the thing is worth less every month, and once because you're paying for the privilege of owning it. Good debt is something completely different. Good debt buys you assets, real estate that appreciates while tenants pay your mortgage, equity in a business that generates cash flow, property that compounds in value while you sleep. The thing you bought with the loan literally pays the loan back for you and then keeps paying you forever after. Robert Kiyosaki, the guy who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, said it the simplest way anyone ever has. Bad debt takes money out of your pocket. Good debt puts money into your pocket. That one sentence is the whole framework. Most people will hear it and forget it inside 5 minutes. The wealthy hear it once and never make a financial decision the same way again. Your $400 car payment takes money out of your pocket every month for 5 years. And at the end of those 5 years, the car is worth maybe 30% of what you paid. A $300,000 mortgage on a rental property generating $2,500 a month in rent puts money in your pocket. The tenant pays your mortgage. The property appreciates 5 to 7% a year. 20 years later, the loan is gone and you own an asset worth 2 or 3 times what you originally borrowed. Same word, debt, opposite outcomes. And here's where it gets weird. The middle class has been taught to fear both equally. That confusion is not an accident. That's the entire trap. Chapter 2. The Buffett Paradox. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Warren Buffett doesn't use leverage. Buffett says debt is dangerous. Yeah, sort of. And this is where most people get tricked. Buffett famously quotes his partner Charlie Munger saying, "There are only 3 ways a smart person can go broke: liquor, ladies, and leverage." He wrote in his shareholder letter that rational people don't risk what they have and need for what they don't have and don't need. Sounds like Buffett is on your parents' side, right? Avoid debt at all costs. Except Berkshire Hathaway is one of the most leveraged businesses on the planet. They just don't use traditional debt. They use insurance float, billions of dollars in premiums collected from customers that Berkshire gets to invest before they have to pay out claims. Buffett can honestly say he's never borrowed a significant amount of money in my life, while sitting on tens of billions of dollars of other people's money that he's investing for Berkshire's benefit. That's not avoiding leverage. That's the most elegant form of leverage ever invented. And here's the part that actually matters. Right before he died, Charlie Munger himself admitted, Berkshire could easily be worth twice what it is now, and the extra risk you would have taken would have been practically nothing. All we had to do is just use a little more leverage that was easily available. Twice as much. The man who told you leverage was dangerous, on his deathbed, said his own empire would be twice as big if he'd used more of it. That's the gap between what the rich say in public and what they actually do behind closed doors. And the middle class lives on the wrong side of that gap. Chapter 3. The Loan That Built an Empire. Let me show you what this looks like at scale, not as theory, as history. The Rothschilds, the most powerful banking family in history. Picture this. 1744. A walled ghetto in Frankfurt called the Judengasse. Jews are locked inside at sundown every night by guards with keys. They can't own land. They can't enter most professions. They have curfews stricter than prisoners. Inside that ghetto, a man named Meyer Amschel Rothschild is sitting at a wooden table sorting coins by candlelight. That's his job. He's a coin dealer in the most restricted neighborhood in Europe. By every measure, he has less starting capital than you do right now. But Mayer notices something nobody else does. The wealthy German princes, the people on the outside of the walls, they need money, constantly, to fight wars, to build palaces, to pay debts. And nobody is organizing that flow of money across borders. Nobody is making it efficient. So Mayer raises 5 sons, and when they're old enough, he doesn't tell them to save. He tells them to go. 1 son to Frankfurt, 1 to London, 1 to Paris, 1 to Vienna, 1 to Naples. 5 sons in 5 cities, a private banking network. Their own courier system to move information faster than any government in Europe. They didn't lend money to clean up their balance sheet. They lent money to entire countries, to kings, to armies, to governments fighting Napoleon. During the 1870s, they loaned money to France to pay war reparations. They made a loan to Britain that let the British government buy a controlling stake in the Suez Canal, one of the most strategic pieces of infrastructure on Earth. The Rothschilds owned the debt. Britain just held the keys. Today, the Rothschild family's combined net worth sits between $400 billion and over $1 trillion. 6 generations later, they're still wealthy because of one decision Mayer made in a candlelit room in a ghetto in 1744. He didn't try to escape the walls. He owned the people who built them. Now back to Rockefeller, because his story gets darker than the hook let on. That $1,000 loan from his father was just the beginning. A few years in, Rockefeller made a bid to dominate oil refining in Cleveland. The cost was over $1 million in today's money. He didn't have it. So he walked into the banks and borrowed every penny. He wrote later that he'd never forget how hungry he was in those days. He couldn't sleep. He paced at night, thinking about failure, thinking about losing everything he and his family had. The richest American who ever lived was once a 30-something terrified that the debt he'd taken on was about to destroy him. Spoiler, it didn't destroy him. By 1879, he controlled 90% of American oil refining. By 1916, he was a billionaire, the first one this country ever produced. And here's the question I want you to actually sit with for a second. If every wealthy dynasty in human history was built by people who took on terrifying amounts of debt to buy assets that paid them back, why does the playbook your parents handed you say the exact opposite? There's a reason, and it has nothing to do with morality. Chapter 4, The Rules for the Other 90%, because the system doesn't want you to know. And I don't mean that as a conspiracy, I mean that as math. Banks make money 2 ways. They collect interest on bad debt, your credit card, your car loan, your personal loan. And they finance good debt for the wealthy, commercial real estate, business acquisitions, leveraged buyouts. When you pay off your credit card early, you make the bank less money. When the wealthy take out a $50 million property loan, they make the bank more money. The bank loves both customers, it just loves the wealthy one more. So what do the banks do? They fund the personal finance industry that tells you to avoid debt. They fund the financial gurus who tell you to live below your means. They fund the cultural message that debt is dangerous because debt-free middle-class workers are predictable depositors, stable consumers, zero risk to the system. Meanwhile, the same banks have a completely different conversation with the wealthy. A private banker at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs is not going to tell their billionaire client to pay off their mortgage. They're going to ask them why they don't have more debt. Because debt, for the wealthy, is the cheapest way to control assets they could never buy in cash. The wealthy aren't taught to avoid debt. They're taught to use it. And the difference is taught at home, not in school. Think about everything you were ever told about money. Stay out of debt. Save what you can. Buy a house and pay it off. Live below your means. These aren't bad rules, they're just the rules for the bottom 90%. The rules designed for people the system needs to stay stable, predictable, and dependent. Robert Kiyosaki understood this at 30. While most people his age were running away from debt, he was running toward it. He bought rental properties on credit cards. Yes, credit cards. His father thought he was insane. He did it anyway. Today, he's over $1.2 billion in debt and getting richer every year because every dollar he borrowed bought an asset that generates more cash than the loan costs him. You think Dave Ramsey, the guy who built a media empire telling people to be debt-free, is worth $1 billion? He's not. Robert Kiyosaki is. The guys who use debt as a tool die rich. The guys who fear it die middle class. Same advice industry, opposite teachers, opposite outcomes. But here's what should bother you most about this whole picture. There's a specific calculation the banks don't want you to do, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Chapter 5. The 4x difference. Here it is. The calculation that changes how you see the next 30 years of your life. Before I show it to you, One disclaimer, because pretending leverage is risk-free would be lying to you. In 2008, a lot of people tried to do exactly what I'm about to describe. They leveraged into multiple properties. They bought on credit. When the market turned, banks called their loans, tenants couldn't pay rent, and a lot of those people lost everything. Leverage doesn't just amplify your wins, it amplifies your losses too. The difference between Rockefeller and the guy who went bankrupt in 2009 trying to flip houses isn't intelligence. It's that Rockefeller bought assets that generated real cash flow he had verified, and he had margin in his deals. He didn't bet the farm on appreciation alone. So when you hear what's coming next, understand it's a real strategy, not a magic trick. It requires discipline, due diligence, and the ability to sleep at night even when the market dips. With that said, two people, same income, same age, same starting point. Both following advice they got from someone they trusted. Person one is your parents' dream. He buys a house with a 30-year mortgage. He makes extra payments every month because that's what responsible people do. He pays it off in 15 years. He's proud. He calls his mom to tell her. After 15 years, he owns one house, free and clear, worth $400,000. He has zero debt. He sleeps well at night. Person two had the same paycheck, the same starting point, but he learned something different. He buys the same house, but he does not make extra payments. Instead, every extra dollar that would have gone toward paying off the house, he uses it as a down payment on a second property, then a third, then a fourth. The tenants pay the mortgages, the properties appreciate, the rent rolls in every month while he sleeps. 15 years later, person two owns 4 properties worth $1.6 million. He has $800,000 in equity, and he generates $4,000 a month in passive income every month forever, whether he works or not. Same starting point, same effort, same paycheck. Person one has $400,000, person two has $1.6 million, a 4 times difference from following different rules. That's not luck. That's not timing. That's not, well, some people are just better with money. That's leverage applied to assets instead of consumption. The wealthy don't avoid debt. They weaponize it. They use other people's money, the bank's money, the tenant's rent, the business's cash flow, to control assets they could never afford with cash alone. They let the asset pay for itself. Then they keep the asset. The middle class pays cash. The wealthy use debt. That's the entire game. And once you understand it this way, every financial decision you've ever made starts looking different, which is the exact reason the system spends so much energy making sure you never see it that way in the first place. So what do you do with this information starting Monday morning? That's the part that actually matters. Chapter 6, the day you stop being middle class. Here's what you do. The next time you feel proud about clearing a credit card, fine, do it. Pay off bad debt, the $400 car payment, the $90 phone bill on installments, the personal loan you took for that trip. Kill all of it. Not because debt is bad, because that specific debt is buying you nothing. But once that's gone, do not stop there. Do not become the person who feels safe and dies middle class. Take the same $400 a month you used to send to the car company and start asking what it could control instead. A small rental property, a stake in a business, a piece of a real estate fund. Something that pays you back every month while you sleep. The wealthy don't ask, how do I avoid debt? They ask, what is this debt buying me? That one question changes everything, because being debt-free was never the goal. It feels like the goal because society rewards it. Your parents are proud, your bank account looks clean, your sleep is uninterrupted, but safety is not the same as freedom. The middle class chose safety, the wealthy chose leverage. And leverage, used correctly on the right kind of debt, is how every single person who ever escaped the middle class actually did it. Payoff. The Rothschilds didn't build a banking empire by being debt-free, they built it by being the debt. Rockefeller didn't become the first billionaire by avoiding loans. He became one because he took a loan at 23 that scared him sick at night. Berkshire Hathaway wouldn't exist without insurance float. Robert Kiyosaki is a billionaire because he holds $1 billion in debt that pays him to hold it. Every wealthy story you admire is a debt story. Nobody told you because the people teaching you about money were paid to keep you safe, not to make you rich. So here's the actual question, the only one that matters now. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning, you're going to look at your bank account, and you're going to make one of 2 decisions. You're going to keep playing the game by the rules the bank taught you, clean balance sheet, low risk, slow climb, middle class forever, or you're going to ask the question the Rothschilds asked in 1744, the question Rockefeller asked at 23, the question every wealthy family has been asking for 200 years. What can this debt buy me? The day you stop fearing the answer to that question is the day you stop being middle class on the inside, even if your bank account hasn't caught up yet. The rich have known this for centuries. Now you do too. If this video changed how you see your money, hit subscribe, because the next one is even more uncomfortable than this one.